What up, what up, what up, y'all? I'm back with another episode of Post Cut Clarity, where I share my unique thoughts or conversations post haircut about our culture that really relates back to our experiences sometimes in the corporate world. And having worked in talent for over 12 years, it's just always given me this really unique perspective. So with that being said, let's jump in. So recently, I actually caught wind of the BET Awards, and one of the things that stood out to me was I noticed that a lot of artists are starting to actually advocate for themselves. And it made me think about the importance of being in places where you're celebrated versus like misunderstood. And nonetheless, I feel like at the BET Awards, we saw really good examples of artists having to advocate for themselves and being able to notice the environments that do not necessarily celebrate them in the way that they should based off their work, right? So today I got 3 takeaways that came to mind. So the first takeaway that I had was the importance of pay advocacy. Taraji P. Henson killed this performance.
Not trying to pay women. This industry been hating on us and stuff again. How many years we gotta still stay winning?
She used her platform and voice to create the right moment and the creative moment to stand up for herself and express her frustrations when it comes to how she's been compensated in the past. Taraji P did a good job of using her entertainment background to advocate her message across her opening act at the BET Awards, which I thought was really creative and fire as well. Compensation can always be an uncomfortable conversation, especially when we're talking about our own money. And it can feel uncomfortable, but one thing that I will say is you still have to advocate for yourself when it comes to your money and handling your money. You have to advocate for yourself when it comes to your compensation because no one is going to be out here giving you free money or just thinking that you deserve it, right? So you have to learn how in the proper ways to advocate yourself, especially in pay, so that way you don't continuously fall behind. So the second key takeaway I had is go where you're celebrated. Don't go to places where you're just like tolerated. Don't go to places where people aren't excited about your presence. Go to places that people give you energy because they're enjoying to be around you and they want to and look forward to celebrating you as well too. But sometimes we stay comfortable within our own space and how we grew up. And we don't realize that even the people that look like us sometimes aren't the ones that want to celebrate us. So again, at the BET Awards, they were cooking with these examples. So here's another example of Donald Glover talking about the BET Awards and discussing his acknowledgement.
Because it's just the math of the fact, because it doesn't really make sense. I have more Grammys than Will Smith, which makes no sense, but I have the same amount of BET Awards as Sam Smith. Does that make sense to you guys?
For clarification, Donald Glover is talking about himself as a black man who does music, dance, movies, and television, in comparison how many awards he has in comparison to Sam Smith, who is like white. And it's not like a race thing, but it's also when we think about Donald Glover, who is black and not being recognized in entertainment, and someone who is white has the same amount of awards, that can be frustrating, right? So sometimes we're in these places where you're most familiar, but you still can't get the recognition that you deserve. So don't focus on who doesn't want you, but focus on being in places that uplift you and be around people who give you that kind of positive energy. The third takeaway that I had in the last one is actually not from the BET Awards, but it does talk about advocating, right? And it's really around advocating for other people. So at the Grammys, I thought Hov did a really good job of talking about how they missed the mark with his wife. Here's an example.
You know, I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work.
So During his award, Hov took time to talk about the unfairness that has been done to his musical peer, who also happened to be his wife, Beyonce, right? He could have spent the time up there speaking about his accomplishments, talking about what he went through, or just giving out shout outs as he was getting this award. He chose that time and used that moment to talk about getting it right. And sometimes advocating for ourselves just isn't enough. And this is a good example of having other people speak up for you and advocating for you when you're not around. In the working place, you won't get a chance to be in every single room where you're the topic of conversation. But when you do come up, the power that comes when people speak highly of you on your behalf, that's been probably some of the most impactful words that's come through in my career in regards to taking me to the next level. People thinking very highly of me and just how the rest of my career trajectory moves forward. So again, with that being said, my 3 takeaways this week were: 1, advocating for yourself when it comes to pay, being in place; 2, being in places where you are celebrated; and 3, understanding the importance of having other people advocate for you. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? Have you had to advocate for yourself? Has anyone had to advocate for you? What's been your experience? Appreciate y'all listening. Peace.